Today I'm going to be talking about Saturn's retrograde in Capricorn and what that means for you. Hi, I'm Ramdas, Bill Sinclair, and I hope you'll like and subscribe to this video channel so we can stay in touch. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about Saturn's retrograde in Capricorn. So today is Saturday, I'm recording it, which is the day ruled by Saturn, and I wanted to spend some time going over this information. So the first thing I'd like to do is show you this graphic which shows the key dates and really how he's going to be moving over this whole period. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, you can see the degrees of Capricorn, and then on the bottom you see the months. So the first thing you'll probably notice is that he reached the retrograde, while it only happens from May to September, we can actually look at the issues he's working on if we back up to the first time that Saturn crossed the degree where he will end his retrograde cycle. So you'll see there on February 3rd of this year, he was at 1 degree of Capricorn. So he then moved forward, and from the 5th to the 15th of May, he'll be stationing at 7 degrees of Capricorn with his exact retrograde right there on the 10th. Then he'll move forward almost all summer long, and you'll see that from September 24th to October 3rd, he'll be retrograde again, with the exact retrograde on the 29th of September. And then we look at the third part of the retrograde cycle, which is when he goes forward again. So he moves all the way up until the 4th of January 2021. So if we really want to look at the long-term impact of this retrograde cycle, we can look at these 11 months from February through the beginning of January of next year, and we'll start to get a sense of how he's working. So let's talk a little bit about what it means when any planet goes retrograde. So I have two key things I like to think of. The first thing is that he wants to rebalance the energy. When they're going forward and backwards and forward, it's a way to rebalance the energy. And secondly, it's a way to emphasize the lessons that are being learned during that time period. So one thing we can immediately start to do is think about what was going on around, when he first reached these degrees in the early February of this year. And those are the issues that he presented the first time. So when a planet is retrograde, it goes over a set of issues. Then what it does, so you see one view of the issues. You come on to them and you see how you perceive them. Then he stops and he backs up over all of them, which is another way of telling us that he actually is seeing a different view, presenting a different view of the issues. And then finally, once we've seen everything from both sides, there's a final pass where we can really make an informed decision of how we want to use that energy, how we want to treat the situations that have been brought up. So this is a very important process to understand because planets, retrograde all the time. Mercury retrograde is probably the most famous one, and so it's good to look at not just the weeks he's retrograde, but what comes up before and after it to see the full impact of the change. So Saturn retrogrades every year, and so he's in a sign for about 2.5 years, which means during each sign he normally has 2 retrograde cycles. So this is why Saturn can be kind of challenging, because he really does work deeply wherever he is placed. He really has a deep impact because he has 2 long retrograde cycles when he visits each sign. But this is also balanced by the idea that he's only in a sign once every 29 to 30 years. So it's really a fundamental shift when he comes in to a particular sign. So Saturn is a malefic, and what that means is he teaches us by presenting us obstacles which we have to process and overcome. And through our action that we have to take, we learn the lessons that he is there to present to us. Saturn owns the sign of Scorpio, therefore his energy is very strong when he's in his own signs. There's a harmony between the energetic signature of the sign and the energetic signature of the planet. So what we can expect whenever Saturn is retrograde, he tends to make us work more than we normally do. He can bring up really deep-seated anger issues that we have inside of us. And the third thing is that he makes us feel guilty, like we haven't done enough. So he's considered often the grinding stone, like he works, he exerts this pressure on us to face, things that we don't want to see necessarily, or things that are unconscious to us we're not aware of. And then through his pressure, they come to the surface. So a lack of balance in work, a lack of balance in emotions, letting deep-seated things come up, and then always feeling like we have to do more and more and more are the three signatures of Saturn in retrograde. These are all especially enhanced in the sign of Capricorn. So it's a time for us to, in a way, be thankful because he's showing us the weaknesses that are within ourselves. And so for the next 3 years, he's going to be in this sign, and we'll be kind of beginning to cope with those things and get what I like to say, the next level of understanding on those particular issues. So that's what's going to be coming up for us a lot in this transit, especially when it's retrograde. So for example, I said, he'll move forward. So let's say you have, a long-standing, difficult person in your life. Well, the first pass, you're likely to see them in the way you've always seen them. On the retrograde pattern, though, if you're open to it and aware of it, you may see something different. You may begin to connect with others or maybe see their point of view, which in the last pass could allow you to release any animosity or anger and actually resolve the tension in that relationship. Now, this is especially important in Capricorn because Capricorn is the sign of caring for our community. Cancer is the sign where we take care of our own, ourselves, our family, our near and our dear ones. But by the time we go 7 signs later to Capricorn, the impetus here is that we start helping out the community, a larger scale of sharing it. Because it's in these 2 signs of Capricorn and Aquarius that Saturn is there to teach us to think not of ourselves, but to think of the good of everyone on the planet. So this is a major lesson that's coming up during this particular Saturn retrograde cycle. And it's fascinating in a way to see what we're going through right now in the world. And things are starting to be exposed. Like we're starting to see like how we have designed this system that is very, it can be very brittle. There's not a lot of fallbacks. We have, it's like, I was thinking the other day, it's like we've optimized everything. So it's almost like frictionless. It goes and it goes and it goes. The problem is when something breaks down, the whole thing comes to a crashing halt. So it's like, an old train, that's putting along, if they see something on the tracks, they have time to stop. But a bullet train, is just going to ram right into it and it's going to really break everything. So I think in a community scale, this is what we have to look at. How are we treating everyone? Because Saturn is a very egalitarian planet. He represents the working people. He represents the poor and the disenfranchised. And a major lesson that we're going to learn through his transit over the next 5 years through these 2 signs is that as a community, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And this will be new thinking in many parts of the world. It's something we all believe and we've heard about, but are we putting it into action? And that's the major question, is that we are going to be faced, especially over this next year and over the summer most likely, with looking at our own views. And while it's important to be active in the community, the way we change the community is we change ourselves. So it's a great time to do inner reflection, especially in Capricorn as opposed to Aquarius. Capricorn is where we look inside at ourselves and we face what are our karmic debts. There's a great signature in Capricorn after we get through this retrograde cycle. Saturn will move into a lunar sign there that indicates the potential for exponential growth within yourself. So this is kind of a precursor to really looking and identifying your problems and see what is likely to come up for you by watching what the world presents to you. Capricorn is also the natural house, is the natural sign that occupies the 10th house. And the name of that house is karma in Sanskrit. And what karma actually means is action. So we get yet another indication that we need to look at ways that we can be active and supportive in our community. Additionally, Capricorn is a cardinal sign, so it's promoting change. Aquarius, the next sign, is a fixed sign, so it's going to stabilize things. But this tells us that we're in this very dynamic period of change. And this may give us a little more positive outlook on what we're coping with, to know that it's really setting us up for a much better, more equal world and a better world experience for everyone. Capricorn is also an earth sign. And the earth element is not just the ground that we walk on, but it's actually a sign that indicates all of the financial and all the people that produce the goods and provide the services that we need. So I think this is why not only do we have to look at how people are treated, like with healthcare and things like that, but also the financial inequality in the world will start to be rebalanced. We have to realize that, we have to be responsible for our own finances as much as we can, but we also have to look at the larger system that is really right now not functioning well for most people in the world. So this is why we're having the financial as well as the health crisis here, is that this is the earth sign, and so earth represents everything we need to live our lives. To get a little deeper about the mental aspects of Saturn in Capricorn, we can look at the nakshatra, which is the lunar mansion where the moon is seated. He is in the same nakshatra for the entire retrograde. So this is a little bit unusual, and what this shows us is really going to be intense. So the name of the nakshatra is called Uttra Ashada, and this is ruled by the sun. And on the day that the whole retrograde cycle is beginning, the sun is exalted. So this brings strength to support us to make the changes we need to make in this cycle, but it also indicates that leadership is really being tested globally. And that's something I want to stress, that this transit is global. Every country is feeling this. And it's really a proving point of the people that have strong leadership skills, are organized, and are really there to serve the people. They are going to be the ones that come out on top. But for all of us, the other image that's associated with Uttra Ashada is like a very simple bed, like a cot with just planks of wood on it that you're sleeping on. So this tells us this is going to be an uncomfortable time. Both physically and mentally, we're going to be challenged. And this is yet again another symbol telling us that we need to undergo a little discomfort and everything that will motivate us to make the changes that we need to work for everyone. The fact that the sun is in his exalted sign indicates that there's good likelihood that great leadership will emerge through the events that are unfolding worldwide. And you have to take a little long view of that. You have to think of all the way through January of next year as to the leaders coming into power, and perhaps the ones that are in power that will understand more deeply and serve the people better, all in line with what Saturn is looking for in Capricorn. Finally, I'd like to look at what's called the D9 chart, or the Navamsa, and what this tells us is we look at the moment when the retrograde begins and we say, what is the outcome likely to be? In this chart, we find Saturn is seated in the sign of Pisces. Now, Pisces is a very sattvic sign, and Saturn is tamasic, which is a lower energy. The sattvic energy is really bringing the highest elements of Saturn out. So this is what we're going to see. This is really Saturn's dedication to helping the poor and underprivileged. Again, we see a separate indication saying this same thing. Now, how effective is this going to be? That is the question, because at the same time that Saturn's in his own sign of Capricorn, Jupiter is debilitated, and Jupiter rules Pisces. So we have to say that may show that it's going to be quite difficult for things to manifest within this retrograde cycle, which makes me think that we're really laying a foundation for a much bigger change that will take more time to roll out. The other thing is that often things we do in Pisces don't manifest in Pisces. It's kind of like paying it forward. So I do believe, though, that Pisces is the ultimate sign of evolution. It's the last sign in the zodiac, and it makes us wrap up all of our old business so that we can prepare to enter the new energy that always comes in Aries, the sign that follows Pisces. So I really believe that, again, we are getting a pretty clear picture that for the next 11 months, well, if you count back from February to January of next year, we're going to undergo a pretty radical change that will involve our financial system, it will involve our leadership, and most of all, it will involve how we support and interact with our communities on a global scale and also on a personal scale. So for each of us, the important thing is to take this energy as a constructive time to analyze what we are doing well and what we can do better. It's like I always say about Saturn, he's a very tough teacher, but once you get through the course, it's not always fun to go through. You really do learn a lot. So I always like to also advise people when Saturn is prominent like this, and he'll be active in all of our charts, it's like the phrase resistance is futile always comes to mind, because Saturn is going to bring you where you need to be. So you can either accept that there are things that this is a time where some uncomfortable stuff will come out, and be prepared to process it and put measures in place that will help you to, support yourself while you go through this individual change. That will be key to handling this in a positive way. When you find yourself really feeling stuck or angry or really overly obsessive, you need to take a break. So work-life balance is a huge thing with Saturn. So you have to take time to relax, and so that you're rested to do the work you need to do. The other thing he can do is give you 1,000 little tasks that don't really mean anything sometimes. So always be conscious of how you're spending your energy and do what's strategically important for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this talk. There's 2 more planets that are about to go retrograde, so I will be posting videos about them shortly. Thank you very much, and I hope you get through this as best you can, and really I hope you learn a lot about yourself and about those around you. Namaste.